Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Decisive 2022 virtual conference. My name is Rachel Stuve, and I will be talking today about the importance of investing in analytic storytelling. Before I get started, I just want to do a little introduction of myself. My name, again, Rachel Stuve. I'm a managing director of Angel Investments for Golden Seeds, which is a national organization of angel investors investing in early stage female-led entrepreneurs and organizations. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, and I do a lot of work advising technology and data strategy for the small and medium business market. I have a number of technical certifications, as well as a master's degree in information systems and business leadership. From a career corporate perspective, I have experience in healthcare, government, manufacturing, high-tech software over the span of over 20 years. I'm also a board member for various technology-based nonprofits in Atlanta and have done a lot of various authoring of podcasts, various speaking events, industry publication articles, and conferences such as this. And I was very honored in 2019 to be awarded the LinkedIn Top Voice in Analytics on their platform. Today, I want to talk about the concept of drowning in information, but starving for knowledge, and really the importance of investing in analytics storytelling. My presentation today will focus on 4 pillars, why there is so much misunderstanding and why there is an importance of investing in analytics storytelling. Those 4 towers are preconceived notions, lack of transparency, miscommunication, and complexity. The first tower is really about preconceived notions, and I have a cute visual here about the preconceived notions of analytics, data, machine learning, AI is largely fueled by pop culture. And we can see a lot of movies, television, and other pop culture items that give people kind of the concept of this very fictionalized and sensationalized AI. Whereas on the right side, we actually see what technologists and data look like in real life. It's a long process. It takes a big team. It can be confusing. There needs to be a lot of iterations. And robots are not cyborgs that are running around. And I think the important thing to really understand about this is that robots and computers are not good at everything. And so there still is a need for human analysis and storytelling. And on a realistic basis, we're still years away from things like humanoid robots or truly autonomous driving. There's a great Harvard Business Review article that I would encourage everyone to look up called "When Your Boss Wears Metal Pants." And that was published in June of 2015. But I still find it very relevant today because it talks about how the work is framed and the importance of storytelling around the work that should be done between humans and machines, and how shifting the framing of that work can actually help humans to increase the acceptance of robots. Whereas us as data practitioners, the importance of investing in storytelling is to definitely make our users feel comfortable and drive adoption by making sure that we are collaborating in partnership and really helping our users to understand that analytics, data, machines are not here to replace humans, but to augment humans, and that there still is always going to be that need for that real high human intelligence and thinking. There's a lot of misconception as well that drives some of this need for storytelling, that technology will free humans time in all areas of work and life. And the thinking originally with a lot of this automation back in the day was that it would really lead to more freedom. But Americans work more hours and take less PTO and retire later even than we did 10 years ago. And that was a study published by Business Insider in 2019. And so what this really does is it drives the need for a data culture to permeate through an organization and not just specialize in silos. And when we can do that, we can allow for more creative thinking and holistic problem solving. And there have been many organizations that I have worked with where when we've democratized data, we've actually found that that has engaged employees more across the organization and increased employee dedication to an organization's mission. And what's really important with that in terms of investing in analytics storytelling is that when organizations invest in the storytelling so that all of the stakeholders are aligned, a substantial amount of value is increased, not just from the project itself, but from supplementary ideas and cohesiveness in other areas of the organization. The next tower that I want to talk about is really, I call it miscommunication, because it stresses the importance of communication, but also understanding that miscommunication can also often occur. And here, investments in data culture and storytelling really are the fundamental route to drive conversations using the same definition of and goals. So one of the main points under this is that historically in a lot of organizations, there's a lack of commonality. And among different verticals or departments, there's often competing goals and priorities. That's not new to any of us as business leaders. But what data storytelling can do can take a look and marry those competing goals to find the common denominator in those goals, and then use data to actually drive priorities and metrics. Another really important aspect of analytic storytelling is lack around clarity on term definition. So just within data science alone, there's over 100, I call quote, common terms that are used in data science. And when organizations invest in their analytics, they create a baseline dictionary of different formulas and definitions. What that does is that allows a common aspect of conversation for leaders across various goals or verticals in an organization to discuss in a common perspective. So for example, in a healthcare environment, having a common definition of what a member is would seem easy, but it's actually very complicated when you talk at different types of coverage or primary, secondary, different dates, different benefits, even different programs. So from the perspective of investing in analytic storytelling, when there's a common dictionary, when leaders have conversations about a member, then everyone can agree on what that definition is and what that membership, what that definition is. Another really important thing that I stress with all of my clients and the people that I mentor in the organizations is that communication skills are not often taught in data science training, but they're really very fundamental. And one of the things that I stress is that it doesn't matter how good your analytics are, your algorithms, your math, if business users don't understand it and they don't understand how to apply it and what to do, the math doesn't matter. So as business leaders, it's very critical for us to really recognize the fact that when we build out teams, that storytelling is a very, very critical and often overlooked aspect in team building. And it's critical to a program's success in not just external marketing, but also internal buy-in, internal alignment. And really a lot of what drives that is the concept of analytics and data science in higher education really is relatively new. And so a lot of that skill building that we need to do to make sure our data programs are successful fall on the leaders of our shoulders of our leaders today in business. Another thing I want to point out with communication is just ethical AI and the fact that this is ethics in AI and analytics is really just starting to become a discussion point in the last few years. And many organizations, because of that, really lack the data expertise input into various programs. And so the importance of investing in analytics storytelling is it's one thing to get a program started and stand up a program. It's another thing to maintain that program and enhance that program and ensure that over the life of that analytics and that data insight, that we are ensuring that it still is true to the original vision and the original intent. And as we continue to permeate data throughout our organizations, become more complex, this concept of just because we can doesn't mean that we should. And so that's a conversation that we need to ensure as business leaders and data practitioners that we're including in our analytics storytelling. And the last point with communication is Simpsons Paradox, which is the concept that trends can appear in separate groups of data, but when you put all of that data together, the trends could reverse. And so the importance here in terms of analytics storytelling is to ensure that we are having a comprehensive view of not just silos of data, but when we put that all together in a comprehensive view, that it's still true to the original intent in the original story. The next pillar that I want to discuss is really lack of transparency. And so analytics investments can drive far more efficient operations, revenue growth, and ROI multiples. So business leaders sometimes lack clear data strategy, policy, and data culture. And so with that, what that can lead to is different trends or issues that we want to tackle that have supplemental considerations, but that were never discussed or considered within that analytics. So for example, I had a client that I was working with that was looking at a lot of sales data and sales trending and had these beautiful models to identify white space, But then when they actually went to deploy that, there were a lot of contractual obligations or partnerships that customers had that thus eliminated them from that white space. And ultimately, the models had to be redesigned. So with that kind of transparency, building between the data group and your business, that type of situation can be avoided. There's also development in silos. And so when the developers don't sit with the business, there is a difficulty sometimes in understanding the business process. Hence what happened with one of my clients. So when, as data leaders and analytics leaders, when we invest in that storytelling and we work to have transparency, our developers don't have to develop in silos, and they can sit with the business hand in hand so that they really understand all of the different processes and the full picture and the different aspects that go into that. Another area for some organizations is lack of oversight and regulation, where some leaders are very knowledgeable about technology or business, but not always both. And sometimes that can cause some issues with transparency, with project delays, or with missing our targets. And a lot of organizations lack comprehensive data strategy, policy, and culture, which is one of the things that I advise to my startups very often, is that having a data strategy that all of the different vertical leaders can agree puts a baseline in for when decisions are going to be data driven, when they're going to be expertise driven, the different types of definitions as we chatted about before. And it will add to getting people to communicate more, have more transparency. And then in some industries, such as government or healthcare or high tech, there are instances where regulators don't fully understand the technologies that they're being tasked to regulate. And this is especially impactful in very high change or fast paced industries. So that is something that has to be considered when developing. And what are the considerations with that? And that's where storytelling is very important, not just from an aspect of helping to spread education, but also to understand certain things that may need to be developed today and then may need to be remodeled or redone in the future when regulation keeps up to that. And then that goes back to the conversation of just because we can doesn't mean we should. And the last point on this slide that I want to point out that's just very, very critical is the importance of feedback loops. And in organizations where I've worked, where feedback loops are missing between the business IT and the business partners, is where there's a lot of delay in projects, goals that are missed, or just confusion on alignment. And this is where when organizations lack this data strategy, that these feedback loops can break. So there's times where IT may not ask for feedback and they just keep developing. And there's times where perhaps the business doesn't proactively provide it. They just kind of sometimes complain. And so the importance of analytic storytelling and investing in that is to build that bridge between IT and the business. And not only does that make projects run more efficiently, but it really makes our projects more accurate as well. And the last slide I have here is really just about complexity. And the importance of storytelling in this area is that analytics and data science, that it is complex. These are complex fields. So as data leaders, we need to make sure that we are truly investing in the proper skills, the proper leadership, and educating our business stakeholders. Statistics is complicated. We could potentially have many different models, different sampling techniques, different bias propagation and application of ethics. So there's kind of the adage that you can always find a stat to back up whatever your opinion is. And that's somewhat true in the fact because statistics is complicated. Another factor of the complexity is really just dexterity or chaos. So robots are not good right now at tasks requiring a lot of dexterity, so fine movements. If autonomous driving was so easy, we'd fully have it by now. But there's a lot of anomalies in construction zones, pedestrians, different types of traffic lights or street signs, different type of traffic marking. From the healthcare perspective, there's a lot of anomalies just in the human body and our reaction to different things. And the third pillar that makes complexity or adds to the complexity is just really what I call algorithm avoidance. And what that is that humans hold mistakes against a computer or an algorithm much higher and to much more severity than we do for a human. And again, this goes back to the Harvard Business Review article that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. But in some areas that we found that computers can actually make more accurate decisions than humans. For example, some radiology readings in healthcare, but still many people still prefer a human provider, even if that human isn't as accurate. And we're seeing that a lot today also in trends in autonomous driving, that when there is an auto accident where autonomous driving was involved, that's handled with a much more critical eye than when humans are involved. And statistically speaking, there's far more humans that are injured or killed in human-based auto accidents than autonomous driving accidents. But still, we would rather humans drive our own car. So I want to thank everybody today for listening to the presentation. Feel free to reach out for additional questions or comments. But the biggest thing to just take away from today is that really, given the complexity, the miscommunication, the lack of transparency, and just kind of the preconceived notions, investing in analytic storytelling is really probably the most critical part of a project's success within an organization over a long period of time. So thank you, everybody, and have a good morning, afternoon, or evening.